Congressman LaTourette, thanks again for joining us this week. I wanted to start this week in a place we haven't really talked about before, and that's the Supreme Court. It's hard to have any conversation about this week without talking about a couple of landmark cases that the court ruled on. The first dealing with the Voting Rights Act, and the second pair of cases dealing with the question of gay marriage. If you could give us an idea of what you think the impact of those cases will be on the Hill in the days, weeks, and months ahead.
Those are both great questions, and the thing that kills me about the Supreme Court and people's observations about it are that, like, one group of people is praising the decision on gay marriage and then condemning the Voting Rights Act decision, and vice versa. And so, to me, the Supreme Court must have gotten it right. If everybody's sort of upset, what the gay marriage, basically the court punted on the California decision and sent it back to California, where marriage will now be able to take place, I think, in about a month. And they let the Ninth Circuit Court of Opinion stand. On the Hill, you're seeing some of the more conservative members of the House indicate they're going to roll out a constitutional amendment to define marriage federally. I don't think that's going to go very far, first of all. Second of all, I think it's a mistake. And so I don't think that decision is going to have much legislative activity going on around it on Capitol Hill. The Voting Rights Act is a different matter, and I suspect you'll see some legislation from advocates of the Voting Rights Act. They'll say this is a destruction of one of the last vestiges of the civil rights legislation of the 1960s. But the southern states make the argument, and it's an argument that the court agreed with, that things have changed in 40 years. And so while the court didn't say that states like Mississippi, Georgia, Alabama aren't going to have a review of their congressional districts by the Department of Justice, they did say maybe you should update your stuff, and that review should be based upon what's actually going on in 2013. I happen to think that's healthy. I understand why people are upset about it, but I think that that's healthy. I think you'll see legislation in both the House and the Senate in an attempt to overturn what the court did by those that are upset about the decision.
So it's another week, and once again, another discussion about comprehensive immigration reform. We saw last week that by a wide bipartisan margin, comprehensive immigration reform, the Gang of Eight bill, passed in the Senate. And so now it's on to the House, where things have always looked murkier. Talk to us a little bit about what the path ahead you see in the House is, and again, what you think the odds are for comprehensive immigration reform to actually become a reality this summer.
Well, that's going to take the crystal ball again. The proponents in the Senate were shooting for 70 votes. They didn't quite get there. They got 68, though, which is, that's a big number. If you get 68 senators to agree on anything, that's a good bipartisan showing. The theory behind getting the big vote, that it would be good to put pressure then on the House, and the House will say, oh my gosh, 68 senators did something, so we better get on board too. The problem with that is that this bunch that is running the House, they really don't give in to pressure. And so the chairman of the Judiciary Committee, Bob Goodlatte, has indicated that they're going to continue to roll out border security amendments, which, if you remember, was the big amendment, the bipartisan amendment in the Senate that sort of pried loose the deal. So they'll work on border security first, and I don't know that they'll get to much beyond that. The question is going to be, I think next year is the year that people need to pay attention to, because we'll be rolling into the 2014 midterms, and quite frankly, the Republican Party is going to have to make a choice. Are they going to go along with the path to citizenship for an ever-growing Hispanic community that's going to be an important part of the vote in 2014 and beyond, or not? And I think that that story is yet to be written.
In a slower week, this next question probably would have been the story that we led with. This week, President Obama, after having failed to get Congress to move on his climate change agenda, rolled out a series of executive actions to move on climate change. I wanted to get your thoughts about how those were received and what, if anything, the response from the Hill may or may not be.
Well, to say that they got a warm reception would be absolutely not true. There are a lot of people that are upset about it, and those people, as you would expect, are associated with electric utility companies, the coal mining industry, and others. And the big news and the big difference in what the president did is, in the past, as you know, Chris, the administration has regulated or put in place a set of regulations for power plants yet to be built. This set of proposals would put restrictions on electric power plants that are already in existence. And so here in our area, we have the East Lake plant, we have the Ashtabula plant, and others. And that's not going to go down so well with people. And, you know, I happen to be a believer in clean air and clean water and everything else. But the fact of the matter is, until we solve the problem of what's Plan B, because 85% of our electricity is produced by coal-fired electric plants, you can't just shutter coal plants all around the country and still expect the lights to come on in your house. So I expect, particularly in the House Energy and Commerce Committee, there's going to be a good bit of discussion, probably some legislation. On the Appropriations Committee, those bills are now going to full committee markup, and I would be shocked if there wasn't an amendment that's called a rider offered on the Energy and Water Appropriations Bill that would basically deny funding for fiscal year 2013 to the EPA and other agencies to administer these regulations.
Finally, as we're getting ready to head into the 4th of July recess here, is there any other issue that has been knocked around in D.C. that folks ought to be thinking about or ought to be on their radar screen?
Yeah, I think clients of our firm and others need to perk up to something that didn't get much attention this week, and that is a letter that was sent by Senator Hatch and Senator Baucus, who are the chairman and ranking member of the House Finance Committee. And they basically have established a date by which any senator who has a proposal on tax reform, an extension of one of the tax extenders, or anything else, submit that. And so there's a very short window of opportunity here for people that have, for instance, are you interested in the wind energy tax credit? Are you interested in the research and development tax credit? Are you in favor of tax simplification? If you're in the real estate business, do you care about the home interest mortgage deduction? If you are in the investment business, do you care about carried interest? And so I would urge, you know, those that watch us, well, they're actually watching me, they're not watching you, but I would urge those, I'm kidding, I would urge those that are watching us to get a hold of the firm and the lawyer that they trust in the firm. And this is the time to act, because after that window closes and the 4th of July recess is over, and then they'll go on an August recess, September and October are going to be tax reform 60 days. And those that are prepared are going to do better than those that aren't.
As usual, we thank you very much for your time, Congressman LaTourette.
Thank you, Chris.